Corbeau, or Karasuba in Japanese, has proven to be a new fan favorite character in the Pokemon universe. From his venomous stylish fashion to his style of speech, which hints to something perhaps a little less than legal. But who exactly is Corbeau? In this video, we'll break down everything that we know so far about Corbeau and make some speculative guesses based on those facts. What his Japanese name means, why his Kansai dialect in the Japanese version of the game may point towards his true place of origin, subtle clues in his design and how it relates to the Japanese yakuza, and lastly, we will take a look to see just how the Japanese fans reacted to him. This deep dive will hopefully help you learn a bit more about this mysterious mafioso. The English name Corbeau comes from the same word in French, meaning crow. In contrast, his Japanese name Karasuba carries deeper meaning, with the word karasu meaning crow in Japanese. And in some cases, the Japanese word for feather can be read as ba. But there is also a Japanese phrase which is relevant here, karasuba iro, basically meaning the color of a crow's feather. All of this connects back to the English name. But there's also an additional meaning in the Japanese name that the English name lacks. This plant is called a karasuba, and it's a variety of Mucadenia rossi. Ex-user Dark and Windy, a talented Pokemon creator, noted that this could be a potential hint towards a connection between Corbeau and the Kitakami siblings, Kirin and Carmine, as all of their Japanese names refer to plants in the Saxifragiles order. Now, I'm not super knowledgeable when it comes to plants and biology, so I checked in with Octo, another incredibly talented artist, who knows much more about plants and biology. They explained that plants being in the same order is akin to humans being related to primates, making them pretty similar. But if Game Freak really wanted to strongly hint at a close familial relationship, they would have been better to put them in the same family. We can see here that the family type for Carmine and Kirin's is the same, whereas the family type for Corbeau's is different. However, my main reason for thinking that they are not super close relatives comes down to speech. I won't go into detail here because this video isn't about the Kitakami siblings, but the two of them, specifically Kirin, speak in what is known as Irate-ben, a dialect belonging to the Irate prefecture of Japan, the inspiration behind Kitakami. However, Corbeau, the star of this video, speaks in a completely different dialect, specifically Kansai-ben. Kansai-ben is an umbrella dialect that consists of multiple slightly differing dialects from different prefectures in the Kansai region of Japan, the real-world equivalent to Pokemon's Johto region. While Kalos is a France-inspired region, if Corbeau is in fact Johtonian, he wouldn't be the first Johtonian to make a move. Even just looking at Kalos, there's already a famous confirmed Johtonian resident in Valerie. Some people may argue that Corbeau speaking in Kansai-ben doesn't mean he is from Johto, but Pokemon has previously intentionally used Kansai-ben in the Japanese versions of the games to indicate a character's Johto origin, Valerie and Bill both being examples of this. And while these dialects don't always make it to the English localization, Pokemon is primarily designed for the Japanese market at its core. So it's my opinion that we should always consider the Japanese version as more canon than the localization. But shifting our focus back to Corbeau, so far we only have two pieces of dialogue to dissect, but both dialogues clearly use Kansai-ben. Let's have a look at the first piece of dialogue.
お金の話でなあなあわかんやろ.
The three Kansai-ben phrases used here are na-na, which means to take something lightly, to be easygoing, etc., etc. Akan, which means no good. Yaro, meaning isn't that right. The entire sentence more or less translates to, it's no good to be lax when it comes to money matters, right? Now let's take a look at the second dialogue.
俺らの代わりにちょっとした仕事を解決してくれへん?
The Kansai-ben used here is kurehen. Hen is used in Kansai-ben, replacing the standard nai. This sentence more or less translates into, won't you do this little job for us? But these pieces of dialogue do not only hint towards Corbeau being Johtonian, they also point towards his potentially somewhat shadier business ventures. The second dialogue especially reads as very yakuza-ish. For those not in the know, yakuza are the Japanese equivalent to the Italian mafia. The line, chotoshita shigoto is especially very yakuza-esque. Basically, it feels like some guy in a fancy suit in a dark back room is not so kindly implying that some poor soul must do a likely dangerous task for him or face consequences. But beyond dialogue, many other aspects of Corbeau also scream yakuza. His suit, his steely face and scary expressions, his beefy bodyguard, the interior of his office, all of the grunts, especially this one guy who looks like he's straight out of a Yakuza anime, and even his Pokemon give off Yakuza vibes, with his main partner Pokemon being the snake Pokemon Arbok. A link is formed with ink. Yakuza are famous for their distinctive tattoos, each with their own meaning. Snakes are a popular choice, symbolizing luck, both good and bad, change and wisdom. Another very interesting design aspect to consider is the Rust Syndicate logo that we see on and in the Syndicate's building, as well as the Megastone badges worn by both Corbeau and his bodyguard, as it bears a striking resemblance to the crest of the real-world Yamaguchi group. Moving over to the reaction of Japanese netizens. Corbeau's popularity was instantaneous. Overall, it's obvious that Corbeau is very well liked. It was said that he will be appealing to many. There was also many mentionings of his cool looks, with one person even implying that they will now buy Legends ZA because of Corbeau. People also compared Corbeau to other Japanese fan favorites, such as Rika, Raihan, Kabu, and Ingo. A popular topic of discussion was both his Kansai dialect and the fact that he is so blatantly inspired by Yakuza. It seems like many were happy to see another character speaking Kogane-ben. Kogane-ben is a phrase created by Japanese fans, with Kogane being the Japanese name for Goldenrod City, and Goldenrod City being inspired by Osaka City, the biggest city in the Kansai region. So basically, Kogane-ben is the Pokemon world's Kansai-ben. However, some people were wondering if it's even okay for a Yakuza-inspired character speaking Kogane-ben to be in a Pokemon game. Meanwhile, some were just shocked to even see such a character in a Pokemon game. But even those aspects of Corbeau's character act as building blocks of popularity, with many loving the bad boy vibes and Kogane accent. Some Japanese fans even began creating fun little character dialogues of what they imagine Corbeau may say or how he may react in certain situations, including this particular scenario regarding his shorter stature. On the topic of his height or lack thereof, some fans also found this endearing and interesting, even noting that Corbeau is actually shorter than the player character. There was also a lot of talk focused around his personality, the short few seconds we saw of it anyway. One person wrote that while Corbeau seems like a scary Yakuza, they get the feeling that he will actually have a soft side and be very close with his Pokemon. Another speculates that perhaps Corbeau will help the protagonist player in some way. Another fan explained that if Corbeau can have this kind of gap in his personality and persona, his popularity will only increase. Meanwhile, another fan wrote that although Corbeau gives off an economic Yakuza vibe, he's likely still a strong fighter. But let me know, what are your thoughts and opinions of Corbeau? Share them in the comments. And if you enjoyed watching this video, please be sure to press that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and consider checking out some of my previous videos. Thanks so much for watching, but until next time, it's time to say bye bye, mata ne.